So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this third day VST Tech Summit 2022 online edition. Today, we'll talk about data resilience featuring some key strategies and tools that you can use to protect, backup, and recover your data. But at the same time, this is the main difference, consume it as a cloud service. So my topics will be the following. I'll start off with a shift in terms of focus for many businesses from an infrastructure focus to data first modernization. And then we'll talk about the challenges that preventing some of the businesses to actually achieve the goals of digital transformation related to data. And then I'll highlight what is the game changer in the area of protecting and recovering our data assets. And this afternoon, I invite you to attend the second session from HPE that will deal more in detail for some of the tools I'm going to show you this morning in this presentation. So let's start with the first topic, the shift to data first modernization. So what are we talking about here? Well, it's a change in focus in digital transformation. In the early years, the focus was primarily on infrastructure first. So when you hear businesses talking about let's do cloud, adopt public cloud, some of them are thinking of the cloud as an alternative infrastructure. So that has been the focus in the last few years, modernizing what you have on your IT data centers. But here's the challenge. As businesses start to do this, they still have to keep on running, keeping alive their legacy equipment and applications, especially those that generate revenue for them. So the challenge is balancing this shift to adopting public cloud infrastructures with legacy, multi-generational IT. So now you have silos of equipment that you need to manage using different tools, a different set of tools for the public cloud, and a different set of tools for your different branded legacy infrastructure. The focus was to be agile, but primarily in terms of development. That's helping developers acquire tools so that they can shorten or reduce the time to value of capabilities the business wanted that the developers roll out into production. And because of this, as a consequence, some companies decided to do all-out cloud, 100% public cloud. So they brought everything into the public cloud, in effect ceding controls to the various public cloud providers. But what happened? This is the interesting development. As more and more new businesses go to the cloud, we have the early adopters going back on-prem, repatriating some of those apps and data back on-prem. They must know something that the new adopters of public cloud does not know. That's the challenge of the bill shock. Once the business volume, transactions, number of users spike up, then they realize, wait a minute, I thought when we went to the public cloud, the economics was very affordable, but now they're getting this bill shock. It's like this analogy. If you have several air cons in your house and it's summer, you run all of them to keep everybody cool. But then at the end of the month, what do you get? Bill shock. Same way. In any infrastructure, anywhere, starts using more of it, then expect the billing to be expensive as well. And we're not even talking about the primary and more important focus that should have been on data. So now with this insight, the early adopters are now making a sensible choice of deciding which apps to go to the public cloud and which apps should we keep on-prem. We're still doing cloud. We're not going back to the legacy old way of doing infrastructure and applications. They're both cloud. They're both consumed the same way. You pay for subscription in the public cloud. Businesses are willing to pay for subscription on-prem. But now let's consider the more important focus that's happening now. It's about data. With data-centric modernization, we are now able to build apps or code applications where we decouple the location of the data from the apps. If we abstract it this way, we don't have to rewrite code if the apps that's accessing data on the edge moves into the data center or moves into the public cloud. You don't need to rewrite code just because you move data around. That is a data-centric modernization approach. Imagine if you have multiple data centers or you have regional data centers. For example, if you are spread around the Philippines and you have data centers in Luzon, data center somewhere in the Visayas, another data center in Mindanao. A data-centric approach in digital transformation allows you to see all the data for the apps to be able to access the data anywhere it sits because the location is abstracted from the application. All it knows is this is the data, something else worries about where it is. Translate the access to this data. And then the way we provision, the way we operate, the way we control, optimize the infrastructure where this data sits, it's a unified service delivery. It's the same toolkit, whether you are provisioning compute, you are provisioning storage, or you are provisioning network, or optimizing any of these key components. It's the same toolkit. Unified service delivery all across edge, all the way to the cloud. So that is an important aspect of a data-first modernization focus. And instead of just accelerating developers so they can reduce the time to value of services the business has wanted to roll out, we're accelerating decision-making here because the data is accessible. Anywhere it sits, we can find it, we can process it. It helps people who need the data make those decisions faster. There was a time where I engaged with customers where management needed something the following day. But because of the way they set up their infrastructure, the way the data was set up, the way the applications were set up, and the processes were rolled out, they could not address that requirement. It will take them nearly 2 days to bring the data to those executives who need them to make the decisions. By that time, it's irrelevant. The point of decision making is past. So we need to address this. We need to address decision velocity. We need to do something about the speed of the way we process data, the way we set up our data, as well as the infrastructure where it sits. Now, let's talk about some customers that actually benefited by taking HPE's data-first modernization approach. They keep lots and lots of data. In the 90s, there was this famous phrase, data rich, but information poor. But with data-first modernization, that is no longer true. We enable an information-rich business. And these are the benefits these customers are getting. Despite the voluminous transactions and data they keep, instead of that bogging them down from making decisions, it enables them to make faster decisions for the business. So what is the challenge? facing the traditional legacy, infrastructure-focused customers centered around data. This slide is intentionally designed to be busy, complex. The impression is it's not easy to read. It's not easy to absorb. That's the point. Data management is complex. There are many decision points. There are many people involved in making a successful run of this kind of setup in any business enterprise. Let's walk through some of the things that will slow us down today. Consider, for example, if there's a request, somebody wants to make available a capability for the business centered around an application and a database. Let's say that database is a Microsoft SQL server or an Oracle database. There are many issues that needs to be addressed. Technical issues, nitty-gritty issues. Things like, how many volumes do we need to support this database? And of these volumes, what file systems are we gonna mount this on? And then what type of disk are we gonna run this on? Will we get that sufficient performance in terms of I/O, the technical people call IOPS, the amount of power and bandwidth that can pull in and extract data back and forth from the storage? And then you need to decide whether is a firmware for the hardware of this storage, where our data sits. Is it compatible with our network switches, where the data will flow? And when you talk about the servers that will connect, somebody has to decide, is the version of the operating system properly patched, and the database software, is it properly patched so that all of them will be compatible end to end? And when we finally set it up for day one, who will check that we did everything right? Because here we need to mobilize a lot of people. We need to mobilize the DBA. We need to mobilize the storage admin. We need to mobilize the network admin. We need to mobilize the server admin. And once that is done and we set it up to production, how do we know if it's done right, or if something, a problem like slowdown, performance issues, how do we fix it? In my early days in my career, people pay me for my troubleshooting skills. So when an application was rolled out, things slowed down, they called me up because the server guy couldn't figure it out. The storage guy couldn't figure it out. The database guy couldn't figure it out. And the application guy says, it's the hardware. So I come in, I look at all the logs, and then I ask for the code. And guess what? Oftentimes, it's sloppy programming that has caused the slowdown. Or what if it's really the data? We really have a hot table. How do we move that table out of the storage where it sits and move it somewhere else? And that's just the production primary storage component. What about the other parts of the business where they keep humongous lots of data, extracting it, getting it from the social media and other places, keeping documents, images, audios, videos onto a secondary storage? How do we protect that? If that set of information is critical to the business for operation, what if somebody encrypts that with malware or ransomware? And it's huge. It could be probably petabytes of data. How can we recover? What about our backups? Some customers that I've been engaging with, their primary issue with backup is that their data is growing fast, it's getting huge, yet the backup infrastructure is unable to catch up with the data. So it's an ordinary problem that every day some businesses do not go online immediately because the backup is not finished yet. They're not done backing up the previous transactions. So there's a problem of complexity, capacity, performance. SLAs are not accomplished. Yet the business has been tolerating this failure to address SLAs. And what about those guys that are pioneering analytics in your business? They wanted data. They wanted copies from everywhere. And if you give them a copy of those data, that creates and reinforces data sprawl and storage sprawl, additional complexity to manage. So it's not simple. That's why this diagram is complex. Now, the question is, how do we solve this so that we could protect our data? And if something happens, we can recover fast and we can enable the business with applications that maximizes the value of the data for the business. Let's move on. This is the game changer. This is what HPE has seen across our global customers, and they requested this to enable them to move forward with their digital transformation. What is this game changer? This is the game changer. Customers wanted the experience they saw in the public cloud, the automation, the simplicity presented by the public cloud to be brought on-prem. Is that possible? Can we make our data centers operate like the public cloud? If we can, that would be a game changer. And according to a survey from ESG, Data Management Maturity Study, nearly everyone agreed that mature cloud operations on-premise is the single most important step to eliminate complexity. Cloud operational experiences abstracts the complexity from our people, from our staff, so they do not get bogged down by the complexity, by the complex processes supporting that complexity. So the big question is, what has HPE done to bring cloud operational experience on-premise so that customers can continue to operate in a hybrid cloud way? That is, you keep your apps that's perfect for public cloud, you keep your apps perfect for on-premise, but you want a common plane of experience, a common operational experience, cloud operational experience across this IT estates. We've done it. And the rest of my presentation today will talk about the environment and the tools that are available today to deliver the simplicity, the automation that customers love so much in the public cloud, but is now available on-prem. We should thank HPE for that. So remember this. This is what our customers around the world are asking. After they've gone to the public cloud, got that bill shock, they decided to be wise. Now we know that all applications will have to go to the public cloud. Some applications are perfect for that, but we don't need to bring everything there. But now we're more complex because now we need to maintain two estates, one in the public cloud and one on-prem. So their ask is it possible that we operate these different environments in a unified way? Can we simplify the way we manage data across this environment? And the answer is a positive yes. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the series of slides, the tools that we bring forward to make this happen. This is what we are today. We operate on silos, and therefore our tools are also siloed. Different consoles for different data centers and different branded storage infrastructure, and a separate one also for the public cloud. What we want to do is this: simplify and automate things. This is the ideal state we want to be. We want to have a unified data ops vision where we can manage everything from a single console, single pane of glass. Whether the data resides at the edge and its infrastructure or at our data centers or in the cloud, you should be able to see everything, monitor everything, provision to anywhere. That's the vision that HPE has, so that customers can have a simplified, unified experience across all of these environments. Today, when it comes to data, we have this technology called HPE Data Services Cloud Console. I'm not going to talk about this in detail today, but I invite you to the afternoon session where you're going to probably see some demo of this technology and more of its concepts. We package everything, including that capability, the Data Services Cloud Console, into a platform we call HPE Green Lake. HPE Green Lake is not just a way to consume infrastructure. It's an edge to cloud platform, and HPE is the first company to actually deliver and consume something that is real, production grade kind of service. But the difference with the public cloud is this service, this cloud comes to you. Whereas customers today go to the public cloud, HPE Green Lake is the cloud that comes to you. Manages, provisions, controls your data anywhere from edge to your data centers or even co-location providers if you use them, or even public clouds. And you can even ask us to operate it for you if you want to. That's why there's a portion there called managed for you. There are specific capabilities there that you might not want to operate. Then you can ask HPE to operate it for you and consume everything in a pay-per-use model. Let's drill down a little bit on what's inside an HPE Green Lake edge-to-cloud platform. Everything that's inside HPE Green Lake is designed to deliver this unified cloud services experience. So first, we have the platform. For you to be able to relate to the term platform, just think of Shopee, think of Lazada, where if you want something, you want to order something, you want to scan the catalog, compare the prices, order and monitor delivery. That's a platform. The HPE Green Lake Cloud Platform, that's exactly what it does. It shows you the catalog of services you can buy, and then allows you to configure what you want to buy, and then order it, monitor the delivery, and finally operationalize, consume the service. Remember, this cloud comes to you. We deliver the infrastructure, the service that comes with the infrastructure into your data center. So you can buy networking as a service, compute as a service, storage as a service. For this presentation this morning, I'll focus more on storage as a service. So on top of this storage as a service, infrastructure specific to storage, we have a layer of services called data management services. And that's what I'm going to talk more about in the succeeding slides. But beyond data management, We have specific workload-oriented services. For example, many of our customers are trying to do an R&D, some sort of a lab environment for analytics on AI and ML. Their processes are still very raw. It's not production grade type of service orientation for an AI ML environment. With workload orchestration, we bring to the customers a production grade process for supporting AI and ML workloads. The tools are there, the workflow is there, and we save you creating storage sprawl or data sprawl because you need copies of data from everywhere. So that's one of the important capabilities. So you can focus more on the value add, the output of your AI and ML work, rather than on the process, rather than on the infrastructure related to this delivery. And we surround this Green Lake with the tools and capabilities that are inherent, innate, should be innate in a service like this. Security, for example. We are creating the Green Lake Cloud platform as API enabled. But we do not just publish the API, we make sure that third parties like customers building their own application, taking advantage of the API of the Green Lake Cloud platform, that they properly identify themselves and authenticate themselves first with the platform before they start accessing all the services available in it. We have adopted an open standard for API to API calls called this Hpe that's embedded as a protocol inside the Green Lake Cloud platform. And if you need help assembling or building together all of these building blocks, we have the advisory services to help you accelerate the delivery of the outcome you wanted, and as well as operate it for you to our managed services. So this is the platform. This is the cloud delivery platform delivering the cloud operational experience. So let me now focus on walking you through how do we build a resilient storage stack that is consumed as a service delivered on-prem through the Hpe Green Lake Cloud service. And by the way, this Green Lake Cloud service is not new in the Philippines. A lot of customers have already adopted it. It simplified their infrastructure management. It simplified their delivery of application capabilities to the business. And one important feature here is we bring in additional capacity buffers so that if you need to increase capacity for a specific time period only, the capacity is already there. You don't need to pay for that extra buffer capacity, only when you use it. So how do we design and assemble a resilient storage stack for our customers that are running applications that are revenue generating, for example? Well, we need to start with where the data sits. That's the mission critical storage as a service. Mission critical, that means that storage needs to be up 100% of the time. Is that possible? Well, let's compare with what other vendors are doing with storage as a service. Some vendors are offering their storage as a service, but they bundle it with managed services. Some customers want the flexibility of decoupling that if they're capable to operate storage. But some offerings, you cannot decouple that. That's one thing. It lacks that flexibility. Other customers cannot offer in their storage as a service a very high uptime necessary for mission critical applications, especially if it's revenue generating. they can offer only up to 99.99% availability. So there's a risk there in terms of operations. Although we want data and its infrastructure to be resilient, but we want it to be, if possible, not to experience any disruption at all. So there's a limitation here. It's depending on what kind of application you want to run, but not for mission critical applications. And finally, here's the hard part. You still operate it the same old legacy way. The tools are still using the old legacy approach. The complex, difficult to operate tools. Although they offer it as a service, as if in the cloud, it does not operate like the cloud. It's just a packaging of the way you consume it. But to be able to deliver a complete cloud operational experience, not just the way you consume it, but the way you operate the infrastructure. That's where we differ in what we bring to the market. So one, it's very easy to order this Hpe Green Lake for block storage for mission critical apps. There are just 4 key attributes you need to identify to be able to order and have it delivered. Second, we guarantee 100% availability for your mission critical apps. No other vendor, storage vendor or cloud vendor has this strong confidence and courage to offer something like this, 100% availability guaranteed. But we do, because we know some of your apps, especially the revenue generating, they're critical. You cannot afford downtime. And because we wanted to deliver a cloud operational experience, how much complexity have we removed from the process of operating, managing, controlling, provisioning data from your storage? We reduce it by 98%. I should know, because I used to be an infrastructure guy. I used to set up huge cabinets of storage, clusters of servers that will operate and host the engine for the database. And I need a room full of whiteboards. And I will document on those whiteboards the number of volumes, their capacity, what rate type they are in, and which file system mount point will they be associated in. And I need to know which table went to which volume. And that's not an easy task. And I seal the room where I work on because I don't want anyone getting in there and accidentally erasing all of that documentation before I put it down on paper. But guess what? With this tool, Hpe Green Lake for block storage, you don't need all of that anymore. That's why it's 98% reduction in process and time. I was simply amazed. I'm no longer needed. If my customer adopts Hpe Green Lake for block storage, my skill set is no longer needed because the tool already has a capability that I used to have when I operate and set up big infrastructures like this. So let's now talk about the tool that comes with that mission critical storage that simplifies and automates its operation. To hear more about this tool, please again attend our afternoon session sponsored by HPE to drill down on the details of how amazing this tool is. But I'll just touch a little bit about it this morning. So one, you need to connect that mission critical storage that we deliver to you on-prem. It's not your storage, it's ours. What you're paying us for is for the service that that storage delivers. Remember, this is the cloud service. It's not your property, it's not your asset, it's ours. Everything related to that asset, patches, tweaking, anything related to the hardware, as a service, we vary on that. You don't have to worry on that. But we need you to connect that storage to our cloud service. We do not get data from your database. All we get from that is telemetry, logs. Consider this. Today, if your storage experiences a problem, your vendor's engineer will ask you to send a log. And since you're not sending logs regularly, but only when things like this happen, your logs could be probably 2-3 gigabytes big. And then you will send that over a network connection that your business uses. That will take a while. And because that will take a while, the problem remains unsolved. And then the engineer will have to study what's in the log, maybe a couple of days, then come back to tell you, this is what happened, this is the fix. That's what, several days? Instead of doing that, this is what we ask customers to do. Don't send us your log in gigabytes. Send it to us in trickles. That's what the purpose of this connection is. Rather than sending it in huge, big logs, send it to us regularly, periodically. We don't need to wait for the huge collected data logs, telemetry logs, for us to be able to find out if something has gone wrong. So this is the only purpose of that connection, to allow you to send us telemetry incrementally, rather than wait for something to happen before you send us your huge logs. Now, this tool, we call Data Services Cloud Console. It does a lot of things. But for this morning's session, I'm going to talk mostly on intent-based provisioning. If you want to know more about the rest, please, again, come attend the afternoon session of HPE on this tool. So, let's say I still have the same problem. A customer, an internal department wanted me to provision a Microsoft SQL server or an Oracle database server. What do I do next? I size it. Well, what size do you need? What capacity? Then I used to figure out which disk. Do I have the available disks? What rate am I gonna implement? What kind of performance would you expect? Which service to connect to? With this tool, it simplifies everything. All you need to do, your contribution is to log in. That's the first major task. Log in, authenticate yourself. And once you're into it, there are 5 pieces of information you need to provide it. Everything else will be processed by the AI. Why relegate the task of provisioning to AI? Because we've been in the industry, this capability for the last 10 years. We have captured what good looks like for a database server performance. We know what bad looks like in a database performance. The way it's set up, the number of disks, the number of controllers, the number of connections, we know. So when you ask this tool to please set up for me this kind of environment with these specific attributes, let me know what's your recommendation and I'll approve. So let's walk through some of the screenshots with this tool. So here are the pieces of information. Is it business critical or is it mission critical? For the purpose of this discussion, it's mission critical. It's on a storage that should not go down. 100% availability guarantee. Second, what type of workload? If you pick or you click on that workload, you'll find their Oracle workload, database workload, Microsoft SQL type of workload, and all other workloads. Now, you need to tell the system how many volumes do you need. Give it names. And what are the capacities of those volumes? That's the sizing part. That's the part that you need to work on, your homework. You just feed it here. And then how many servers will connect to this? You put it there. Specify the IP address if necessary. Now, once this key inputs are done, what happens next? Let's take a look. It recommends, if you already have several storage services from HPE, it will scan all of those storage as a service. And based on the capabilities of those storage, capacity, performance, and other things, it will identify a specific array and tell you, this is what I picked based on what you told me that this service will do. You can override it and pick another one. But this is what the AI has assessed to be the best array in your data center to serve the need. Imagine the power of that. And when you're done, you just submit. That's it. Your storage as a service will now be consumable by your end users. Now, how easy is that? We don't need so many people to mobilize to make this happen. And it just happened in a couple of minutes. The only pre-work you need to do is the capacity. And how many volumes, so that you're thinking of tables residing on different volumes, how many of them? That's the pre-work. But once you have this, you're good to go. Now they're operational, we need to protect that. Although that the hardware that's servicing that storage, the data that sits on it, is mission critical, things could still happen with the database or with the application that could ruin your data. Here's where you need to be data resilient. Let's see how HPE delivers cloud operational experience when it comes to backup. What are our customers like you experiencing the area of backup and recovery? If you started using legacy backup approaches in infrastructure, you probably already realized this. Your data that you need to back up is growing fast. It's getting to be humongous. And the architecture, the legacy architecture of your backup infrastructure is not coping. In fact, you've been failing to meet the SLA for years. And somebody has to articulate this to the business, that they're now exposed with the risks. The question is it manageable? And many businesses are able to live with this. It's okay. How many hours did you miss the SLA? That's still manageable. We're still fine. And especially if you're backing up data from across many locations. Probably you even now starting using public cloud to complement or supplement your backup on-prem. And it's very possible the hackers would like to corrupt your backup data as well. So how does HP approach this issue? First, customers told us this. We're now operating in a hybrid environment, but we're still siloed. We want, ideally, a single tool across the public cloud and our private cloud environment for backup. A unified management tool, especially for backup. Why? Because they want to do consistent data protection, enforcement, and policies, whether that's on public cloud or on a private cloud or on-prem. And of course, they want to secure the backup. They don't want to be impacted by malware, by ransomware. And even if it happens, we need to recover fast from where we were before. And they want to do this using automation. And they don't want it to be expensive. Were we able to address this? Let's take a look. Our HPE backup and recovery as a service, it's not expensive because once we make it operational, it's 5 times efficient in network usage or in terms of bandwidth. Why? Because we only send incremental, encrypted, dedupe, compressed data to the cloud if you're backing up to the public cloud. And those backups are immutable. 5 times efficiency. Especially if you do full backups, that's a breeze. Because all our software will do is compare the last full backup with the new full backup you're doing, and then get the differential and send that differential across. Dedupe, compress, encrypted. And it's very fast to set up in terms of policies. And the good news here is, if you're running, for example, in VMware, we don't care what brand your storage is in a virtualized environment. We can back that up, the VM information on your non-HPE storage infra. We only have 3 steps to provision data protection based on the backup, recovery, and service from HPE. Allocate the VMs you want to protect, configure the protection policies, and then apply those policies to that group, protection group. That's simple. You have on-prem snapshots. You even have a separate infrastructure for your local backup, and you even have cloud backup. When we say cloud backup, we refer to the public cloud. So we can create different policies for each of your protection groups, and then we execute them. That's simple. It's not complicated to do. So this is part of the Data Services Cloud Console under HPE Green Lake. Backup as a service. It's designed for the hybrid cloud. So you can back up your data initially from using a local snapshot and then onto an on-prem backup target, or if you wish, for long-term retention purposes on the public cloud. And this is a practice commonly referred to in the backup and recovery field as 3-2-1 principle of backup. And if you want to restore, it's easy. Go through each of the protection groups and then pick the recovery point from which you want to do the restoration. Now, final challenge is, if your recovery mechanism is not fast enough to do recovery, is there another better way to recover faster? Especially if your infrastructure has been victimized by ransomware. How fast can you recover once you've been infiltrated and your data is encrypted and corrupted by cyber criminals? Let's look at this technology called disaster recovery as a service. Of course, there's a little bit of premium for a disaster recovery solution or service, because in terms of SLAs, time to availability, it offers a higher, more complex infrastructure to restore so that the business can continue to operate. What do we offer as a service in this space? Our disaster recovery as a service is based on the technology of Zerto, a software company we bought a couple of years ago. The good thing with this technology is it offers 3 things. It offers continuous backup. That's an important term, continuous. It offers disaster recovery and data mobility. For the same tool, you can move data back and forth, public cloud to private cloud to public cloud. It's inherent in the capability of the service. And the good thing is you can see the entire landscape that you're backing up from this tool. Now let me walk you through to see how simple to do a disaster recovery exercise. There are only 4 steps that we need to remember. First, you see the button here called failover, you click on that. That's step number 1. Second, you pick the application or VM environment that you need to restore. And then pick the point in time copy that you want to restore. And just click on start failover. You're done for your disaster recovery exercise. And the good thing here with the solution is it comes with a report. If there's a requirement for you to demonstrate you did your DR exercise and you have a report that showed it was successful, the CERTO tool, the disaster recovery as a service tool based on CERTO, generates that report for you for compliance purposes that you were successful, you did the exercise, and it could be counted upon to recover as expected. So that's the part of operational efficiency. A lot of customers think of disaster recovery exercise from just a point of view of the technology. It's a bit complex. But HPE is looking at the cloud operational experience by automating and simplifying the process so that the customer IT is focused more on the important parts of the recovery. Now, let me talk more about my last 2 topics here, continuous availability and multi-cloud agility. CERTO has this technology called CDP, and I noticed that many backup and recovery tools are now adopting this approach, continuous data protection. Let's suppose that your business was struck by ransomware at about 10 o'clock in the morning. What are your options? 1, you could go back to your backup 24 hours ago. That's a lot of data to bring in before you start processing again. Or you could go back to your snapshot done 6 a.m. That's a lot of data still, 4 hours worth of data. In fact, one customer I met, they do snapshots every 30 minutes. That's why they buy a big capacity storage to ensure that their recovery time is only short, just 30 minutes. And they think that is manageable for them to be able to recover based on their RTO and RPO. But look at what CERTO can do. Continuous data protection can allow the customer to recover just a few seconds before the ransomware attack. If it happened 10 o'clock flat, you just move back the journal, few seconds, and recover from there, you're back with nearly no data loss. That's the power of the simplicity of CERTO's continuous data protection. And when we restore a complete application suite or stack. We don't restore pieces only and then you get to assemble. Are we missing something when let's say we're talking about SAP? Are we sure everything SAP needs is already restored before we give it access to our end users? You don't have to worry about that, because that is what CERTO will do, will ask you to set up to protect it. So that when it restores, and it restores an environment that is complete, everything you need to run it back in production, it's there. You don't even need to schedule this. It does it on always on journaling. So once you turn it on, it runs. No schedules needed. Don't need snapshots or even agents. It will do it for you. And the other good thing here, it's mobile. Your data could run from anywhere. You could bring it to the cloud or you can bring it back. And these are the clouds we currently support at the moment. You see on flash on the screen. So we've heard in this talk how to build a resilient storage stack that's consumed by the service. Start with the mission critical storage. If that's the right storage you need, we bring in the cloud operational experience through Data Services Cloud Console, and then protect that with backup and recovery as a service with the simplicity of cloud operational experience, as well as our disaster recovery experience as a service for multi-data centers. Remember, this is the game changer, cloud operational experience. And you heard me, HPE, highlight the operational simplicity and the automation, plus the platform, HPE Green Lake platform, the cloud that comes to you to make it a reality. Make it yours. So talk to us about this HPE Green Lake Cloud Storage Service. Please do attend the afternoon session, more on the details of our Data Services Cloud Console and Certo. Thank you very much.